I'm super excited to have this next guest on the show. She is one of the very few UFC women's ranked bantamweights that I have not spoken with, either on this show or in person. In fact, she may be the only one in the top 10 that I haven't spoken with. So I'm excited as hell to speak with her here. We're talking about the woman that is shown right now as being the #3 contender to Amanda Nunes's title, the awesome Aspen Ladd. Welcome to the show, Aspen.
Hi, thank you for.
My pleasure. I'm so glad to talk to you. I've been watching you for so many years, and you know, fighters at the highest level, I think, are all. Oh, you got a little puppy there? He is it a he or a she?
That's a he.
That's cool. I'm thinking maybe that was approval. I think he said, that's a good start, Colin. That's a good start. Well, thank you to your great doggy. And so, yeah, so, you know, I think a lot of high-level fighters are really interesting and unique people. And I think you all get to do some media, but you don't always do a lot. And I've always thought you were a really intense and interesting person. You're an incredible warrior. You have some great stories, and you seem to be also kind of mysterious. Like, I don't see a lot of people that say they know too much about Aspen Ladd. And you know, and I'm sure you may want to keep some of that, but I can't wait to be able to get to know you a little bit better, and have our fans get to know you a little bit better. So your dog is saying, I love it. He said, these are the best questions my mom has heard in a while. I appreciate it. At least I hope he's saying that. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Aspen. Where were you raised, and where do you live now? And I hear your family, you guys were all fighters. Tell us a little bit about that.
I grew up in a little pioneer town, so it's probably about an hour. And growing up, I didn't want to go anywhere. I loved. So I got older, grew up, had some success, and I bought myself a home in Pollock Pines. So I'm in the mountains enjoying life. Oldest of 6 kids, and when I got into MMA, I needed something to do. A shy kid, I needed something. But I got into it with one of my brothers and my dad. I stuck with it, and over the years, my other siblings have all kind of gotten into it at least a little bit. Mm-hmm. Right now, Shaler, he's 18. He's just had his 2nd amateur fight, and he's 2-0 and doing great. So my whole family has some training, and it just depends on how far they want to take it. I would say I'm probably the least naturally talented of any of them. It's just I'm the one that wanted it.
Interesting. I like that, and that definitely seems to be a big part of your game, is the mental game. I remember that fight against Yana Kunitskaya, where I think they showed on a UFC Tonight or on something where they said that your manager I forget what he said, but he said something like, you know, go out there and beat her or something, or what was it? Something that he said that got you fired up. Like, wasn't it go in there and finish her?
There are some dirty words in there. Yeah, no, that was coming into the 3rd round of any fight that's possibly going to decision. You're coming to the 3rd round, hopefully one day the 5th round, but you really need to turn it on. You got to, because you never know what the judges see. You can never guarantee a win. So that's your last opportunity to finish that fight, or really put an exclamation mark on it. And that was basically what he's trying to get me to do. It worked.
Yeah, you really stepped it up, and that's one of the things that I think is really hard for a lot of fighters to do, and I think the better fighters can do it, is like shift gear and like put the pedal to the metal, right? Because I think everyone's trying to do everything they can, right? A lot of people don't know that if it looks like a fighter is like struggling, a lot of the times it's not because they're not trying, it's because the other fighter is just kind of equalizing them in strength or skill or intensity, and it's just kind of like, you know, a struggle. And so it's unusual to see a fighter be able to just like say, no, I'm stepping this up right now. And you seem to be able to do that, just like dig really deep. I think your coach does have something to do with that. You've been at MMA Gold for a while. Who is your head coach or coaches that help you in the fights and in training, you know, pull out so much of this intensity and warrior spirit in you?
So I'm one of those weird ones that's been with the same team forever. I've had every single one of my amateur fights, every single one of my pro fights with MMA Gold, and my head coach, Jim West. So we've we've succeeded together. We've come up together, and he coaches a bunch of other UFC fighters now. But we started as basically just a normal little MMA team of amateurs, and the amateurs went pro, and then the pros started doing better. And we're homegrown fighters. It's something. There's something to be said for having a team that knows you so well and knows everything about you. They know how your style. They know how your style has evolved over the years. And we've all just succeeded together. So I think that's a huge part of my success.
Absolutely. Success breeds success, and having people around that are on that same trajectory really helps. Iron sharpens iron. Who are some of the well-known fighters, either women or men, that you've had around you for a while that people may have heard of?
Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who just choked out one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world.
Yep.
Mac, who just beat Carlos Condit over this last weekend.
Yep.
Training partners and friends I've had forever: Marion Renault, who's about to fight Misha Tate this upcoming weekend, and Andrea KGB Lee, who just had a great showing against the other Shevchenko.
Yes, absolutely. Those are really, really good fighters, and definitely, I think they say sometimes if you can just have people like that in the gym, that the wars in the gym sometimes can end up being even harder than your actual fights. I bet you found that on several occasions, huh?
They can be, but also as you get older and you get more into the sport. So I'm young, but I've been doing this for 10 years. But all of us, especially when you get to a certain level as a pro, you understand the value of not losing too many brain cells between fights when you're not getting paid for it.
Right.
So yes, hard sparring, but you're not trying to win a gym war. That's not the point. You're not trying to go out there and get injured. You get to the point of, you know what you're doing, you're good at what you're doing, and you'll have those wars a few times in camp. But it's not every day. It's not 5 times a week.
Right.
So it's a little bit different. So yes and no.
Absolutely, and that's a really good answer. And I think that in the last maybe 5 or 6 years, a lot of MMA gyms have learned that. Like probably when you first started, it was more like go out there and just beat the crap out of each other, right? And you were only like 15 years old then or something, so it probably wasn't that crazy for you to think to do that. But I think early on in your career, they kind of clamped down on that, or were they always kind of aware of that at MMA Gold?
So I think you need to put in time, especially as an amateur or as you're coming up. So that person, when you are at that level, you got to grind. Like you do need to put more time in. You got to get in those horrible, awful rounds. But as you get older and you're more into your craft, you're better at it. You don't need to do that as much, but there is a learning curve where it's required.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, since your family was always into training and fighting, it seems like obviously you probably didn't have any resistance from parents or siblings as far as fighting as a pro early on, or did you?
No, I'm very lucky with my family, very supportive, great family.
And it's a scary sport for men and women to be in. Were there ever any times early on where you said, damn, I really hate to disappoint my parents, but I gotta dump this because this is too hard and too crazy for me? Was there ever any time that there was a thought like that?
Oh, hell no.
Never.
I loved one. Like from the first week I was in the gym as a little 14-year-old, I was like, okay, as soon as I turn 18, I'm gonna fight. And I've just been the same person ever since. I still love it to this day.
That's awesome. And that helps when you have a passion and a love for what you do. It's not like a miserable grind or a crappy job that you hate, huh?
No, I mean, sure, certain parts of it are miserable, but certain parts of anybody's job are miserable. But even on my cruddiest day, it's still a good day. I'm still happy to be doing what I'm doing.
I like that. And it seems that way. You do seem like an easygoing, upbeat person there. You always have that smile on your face, and it seems like just you're caught up in being happy with the moment. Does that, I'm sure there's also still nerves, but does that attitude help you with maybe being less nervous than some fighters that you see in dressing rooms who are starting to get nauseated or really unhappy and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, I'm not a puker or a screamer. I've seen both. I don't really get hyped up that way, but everybody's different.
That's true.
It's extremely nerve-wracking, but for me, it only really kicks in it's not even, it's like after the hand wrapping, after the warm up, it's the walkout. So the walkout to the cage to when the ref says, "Are you ready?" and you go, and that's when it all disappears.
Yeah.
The little space is the most stressful moment of my life, and after that, it's all good.
I can imagine. Do you tend to have a certain feeling about all opponents? Like we saw with Conor, like this just got crazy with as much hatred as he was kind of spewing at Dustin. And do you find that you want to kind of dislike your opponent, or do you find the opposite, that you'd really like to actually really like her? Or is it in between, and does it change from fight to fight, or do you usually have kind of a perspective and a feeling that you like to have with your opponents?
No, I don't like any of my opponents. It's not a hatred, and Conor's something different. He is an expert at what he does, and he has changed the sport with what he does. That's not me, and that's not a lot of people, but some people are trying to emulate that. So there's a lot of more disrespect than there was. There's not really the traditional, I'm going to respect you, you're going to respect me kind of thing. But I don't like any opponent. They're trying to take everything from you. I don't understand the buddy-buddy relationship, and some people can. Some people are very nice like that, but for me it's such a personal thing. They're trying to take everything that I've worked for. They're trying to take the success. They're trying to take my win. They're trying to, basically, they want everything that I want. We're trying to kill each other.
Yep.
There's no good feelings there. If there wasn't another human there to stop it, there wasn't a ref, the intent is to kill that person.
Yeah. Absolutely, that's the warrior mentality, and I think a lot of successful fighters share that with you. So speaking about fighting, it looks like you've got a good fight coming up against Macy Chiasson, and that is going to be on the 24th, or am I wrong?
You're correct.
Excellent. So we are only about a week and a half or so away, and so you're here in the last week of training where you're looking at weight cutting. And is it kind of like backing off of the hard training yet, or are you still going to do some really hard training for the next few days?
So it's hard in the intensity, but not in the contact. This is at the point where there's no more potential for injury as far as contact goes. You're not going to get cut, nothing like that. There's a lot of high intensity, a lot of reps, just basically getting the weight off.
Makes sense. Have you always been at bantamweight? I think you have, right?
So, because I've been fighting for a very long time. The second I turned 18, I took my first amateur fight, and I went pro at 19. I was still kind of able to make 125 until I got a little bit older. It was like the end of 19, beginning of 20, and I just physically could not do it anymore.
Yeah. And were you hearing some people talking trash, saying Aspen Ladd can be 125, she can kill everyone, blah, blah, blah? It seems like they were kind of talking about that for a while. Did that ever piss you off, or what was your feeling when you heard that?
No, it doesn't bother me one bit. I physically cannot make 125. It would kill me to do it.
Right. And you're just doing really, really well at bantamweight. So, interesting matchup. What do you think about Macy Chiasson?
She's a very game opponent. Big, tall, strong girl. She's done well up to this point, and she's willing to engage everywhere. She seems to favor striking, but she's not afraid to go to the ground. She's not afraid to engage in the clinch. So she's willing to engage everywhere and willing to make it a grinder of a fight.
Absolutely, and you're both very skillful and both young. I think you're a little bit younger than her, but she is pretty young. You're definitely the higher ranked fighter here, although I know she's in the top 10. It's going to be an interesting matchup. Do you ever make predictions about what's going to go down?
Now you have to watch Fight Night. I am terrible as far as that goes.
Makes sense. So if you, and let's say when you get by Macy Chiasson, is that going to be a point when you're going to start trying to let people know that, hey, it's title shot time? Or do you feel there's a timeline of one more fight, or would you be ready for Amanda right after Macy Chiasson?
That's a loaded question.
Yes. Sorry.
It's all good.
Thanks.
I tend to look at each fight as basically the end of the world. Nothing matters beyond it. Nothing matters until that point. So it doesn't matter what else is going on, what fight there's in the future. I'm not looking to that point yet.
Yep. I like that. I'm sorry, say that part again. I stepped on your words.
It's all good. We got to get through this fight, and then we'll see. But right now, that's it. That's end game.
I like that, and that makes sense. You can't be distracted from who's in front of you. So Aspen, the name Aspen, did you get that because your parents were a big fan of the city of Aspen, Colorado?
No, I'm pretty sure it's because they like the tree, or at least my mom did. I'm not 100% certain, but it's kind of how I ended up with it.
Very cool. Did you have any fighters, male or female, in the UFC that you looked up to when you were coming up, or even any that you still really like to watch?
There's people that I enjoy watching, but coming up, like right when I got in the sport, I barely knew I didn't even know what MMA was when I walked into an MMA gym. And I'm still terrible as far as watching and paying attention to the events. Like if I know somebody fighting, I watch. If it's one of my teammates, I watch, or sometimes I feel too nauseous to do it, so I will just sit there and wait for the text. Was it good? Was it bad?
Understood. And so if you had more time, do you think you would watch more MMA, or you would really just, you're not like this big MMA junkie that you would be watching 10 hours of MMA a week?
No, not necessarily. I mean, this is my job. It's what I do, and I love it, but I'd rather be out living my life than sitting there watching others live theirs.
I like that. What is living life for Aspen Ladd? What kind of stuff might you do when you're not training for a fight or fighting?
If I am not in the gym, I'm usually out hiking. I'm with the dogs, one of which you've been hearing half this interview. So I'll be out hiking, a lot of just out in nature, and I like the garden.
That's pretty cool. And you were telling us where you're living and where you're from, and I didn't want to interrupt you then, but the connection wasn't that great. Hate to ask you, but could you throw that out again, where you grew up and where you're living now?
Yeah, I grew up in Pioneer, a little town in NorCal, and now I'm living in Pollock Pines, which is basically, it's very similar. So mountains, about, if you know where Lake Tahoe is, about 45 minutes down the road.
Oh, wow. So you grew up in Northern Cal and you're living in Northern Cal now?
Uh-huh.
Nice. So would you ever want to live anywhere else?
No, I love it. I love it here. I love the mountains. I'd like to travel a little bit more because the only great thing about living in California is it's beautiful. Besides that, it's very expensive, and but we'll see. We'll see if after my career and everything like that.
Absolutely. And your fight on the 24th, that's Vegas, right? Or is that Houston?
Yes, it's Vegas, and I should, as far as right now, we're in the Apex.
Interesting. Because I know we did T-Mobile with Connor. I didn't even know the Apex was still in the rotation, but if it is, that means it's going to be no fans, right? Or what? Did you hear anything?
Because I know this past weekend, I think they had, you know how many fans they had? Because it was a lot.
You mean at in T-Mobile?
Yes.
A ton. I was there. In the press row. And it was sold out. I believe it was sold out in T-Mobile. Like, yeah, there was nothing about, I know press, we took COVID tests and other stuff like that, but I don't know what the protocols were for the people. I didn't see too many masks, and it was like elbow to elbow.
I know there's still certain protocols for the fighters. Like I gotta do a COVID test before I even ship out next week. But as far as the fans, it doesn't look like there's much going on. So it's weird that they're still doing the Apex.
Yeah. I mean, that is so odd. I mean, you wouldn't think they would be, but does it matter to you? I know you fought without fans and with fans. It seems to me like you're super focused, but I'm curious. Tell me.
So I blew my knee out at the beginning of this whole COVID thing. So I've actually missed all of that. I missed all the restrictions. I missed fighting in the environment of not having fans.
Interesting. That's right. I should have caught myself because I'm looking in my mind and I'm like, wait, I haven't seen Aspen fight in a year or a little bit more. How do you think it would be? Would it be weird, all these fights you've had with huge crowds? How do you think it would be to go in there and have it be silent and completely hear your coach and your opponent's coach and so on?
I don't know. I've never really noticed the crowd regardless of when I've had huge ones or when they've been a little bit smaller. It'll be a little weird in that the Apex, I've been there several times. We all go to the PI frequently, and that's right next door. It's going to be weird. That'll be the smallest venue I've fought in since I was an amateur. But I don't know if I'll notice. I know there'll be a handful of people in there, but I'm going to have to experience it. I don't know.
Absolutely. Do you look at odds? Because you are the favorite anywhere from minus 165 to minus 188. Do you know what those numbers mean? And do you look at that and do you ever wager?
I never pay attention to that, and I'm not much. No, I'm not really a gambler type person.
I give you a lot of credit for that because it's not really going to help you, and it's definitely a slippery slope you can go down. Does it matter to you whether you're a favorite or not, and do you feel differently if you find out you are or you're not?
Not at all. So a fight's a fight regardless, and anybody can win on a given night. I've never looked at that. It doesn't matter at what point in my career. It's always that opponent's the toughest one on the planet, and anybody can have a bad night.
That is very true. Well, we're only going to keep you 3 minutes more, and there's so many questions. So if you don't mind, let me throw some rapid fire at you, okay?
Go for it.
Awesome. Okay. Do you ever talk to your fans on social media? Do you find this is a cool thing, and you've had some wonderful feedback that you like, and some of your fans are cool as hell? Or do you find it's a place where people are really trying to piss you off, and you really would rather avoid it, or what?
Okay, so that's 50-50. Sometimes, and there are really cool fans and really cool people on there that I've met, and some have even met in person. And there's some positivity, and that's great. But there's also, especially if you're a female athlete, there's a lot of creeps. There's a lot of that kind of thing, where more so even than the negativity. And you get hated on, period. Anybody that's got a little bit of somebody knows you, you're gonna get hate.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you do. You could be giving food to the hungry, you'll get hated on. But for me, it's, yes, I do like to communicate with a certain number of they seem like very nice people. But the creepers kind of balance that out, so it's like 50-50.
Yeah, makes sense. Also, if you meet people in random places like an airport or just hanging out, whether it's men or women, and you get to talking and you admit you're an MMA fighter, are people all still really not really surprised by that? Or do you get some people say, wow, woman MMA fighter? Like, what's been your reaction, and is it ever something funny?
So I never bring it up. It doesn't matter until somebody else does. Like, hey, what do you do? Then I explain it, and they usually are, oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. So it's very seldom, and if it's a conversation that they've brought it up first, like somebody recognized me, like, oh my gosh, that's different. They're already aware. But when you're explaining what your job is, that's a little different, and it could have some interesting reactions.
Yeah, I've actually heard some female fighters say when they're at an airport or somewhere after a fight, and they might have like a black eye, that sometimes an older woman would say, dear, don't stay with him, leave him, get away from there, right? And you're like, no guy was beating me up, it was an MMA fight and I won, you know. So
it's what I get paid for.
Right.
Yeah, that before, but from like training, but it's normal.
That's cool. Last question. What advice would you give to a female fighter that's like as young as you were when you were thinking of starting, or maybe a little bit older than that, as far as what she can do to best be prepared, and maybe what qualities she needs to have for this to turn out to be something that she can be successful at?
If she really wants it, she just needs to show up. It doesn't matter anything else, ability, all that. The most important thing is show up. Have perfect attendance. Every single class, you will get better. And stay away from the dudes. So I've seen so many females, and just men and women, their careers are ruined early on by basically the things that aren't important. So keep to yourself. Do not date your gym. And show up to every single practice.
I love that. That's great advice. What's the best social media source for people to show you love and follow you and cheer you on?
So I've always thought my name was weird enough. It's why I don't have a ring name, and all my social media is just me. It's Aspen Ladd.
Awesome. Well, Aspen, I really appreciate your time. It's been so awesome meeting you and getting to know you at least as much as you can from interview. You're awesome. Our whole team of the MMA Power Hour was excited about you coming, and we really appreciate your time. We'll be cheering for you. Keep up the great work you do.
Thank you very much, and thank you for dealing with the extra audio you've had half this interview.
Not a problem. I'm a big animal lover from a long time ago, so I'm glad to see you're loving your dogs. And yeah, it was a pleasure. You have a great night and take care.
You too.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews, ad-free, and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.